We went to Germany after Denmark. All the things that we saw there. Schleswig-Holstein, the big cathedral there, the huge oak carvings. And I wrote down, you can't believe it until you see it. And we bought a German dictionary there, a German English dictionary. We needed. Now, the interesting things, we're in Germany now. Now, see, my background is German. So my grandfather came from Germany when he was a young boy, about 16, 17 years old. He came over here by himself. This They used to do things like that years ago. I've known other people, you know, my generation, or they would young people would come over to the United States. Now I don't know why. I wish I knew why my grandfather came over here all alone. He didn't know any English when he came here, uh, and he came over when what he couldn't speak English, and he knew how to say beefsteak, a beef stew. I think I told you that. Well, anyway, I don't know why he came. I would be interested to know, but I don't know. But he came, all alone, and of course we wanted to go see where he lived. As I think I may have told you, I don't think it was economic reasons because his father was a doctor in Germany, in Ulm, ULM, and he was a doctor there. So I don't think it was, financial reasons that he came to get a better life, because I'm sure he had a good life in Germany. But he left, as a middle to about 17, I think, when he came over. But I knew other people who did that. It was funny. I knew one couple here in Sayville. He came over, the man, and she came over separately. They didn't know each other in Germany. They came over here and they settled in this area on Long Island. They met. They When they got together, they found out they came from this, which was coincidental. They came from the same town in Germany, and they met over here, and they eventually married over here. That was quite a coincidence, but that had nothing to do with my being in Germany. But um, I wanted to go to the town where my grandfather came from, of course. So we found Ulm, and there was a beautiful cathedral there. And anytime we could go to a cathedral or someplace like that, we would go. Now, uh, we didn't get to a service or anything in this cathedral, but they were having an organ recital that afternoon that we were there. And Harold and I said, "Oh, let's go to this. This should be lovely." And it was a beautiful, beautiful cathedral. So we went into the cathedral, and it was the most gorgeous organ concert. Took all afternoon. So you see, we didn't know those things were going on. We get there, and that's what's going on, and that's what you do. That's the way we traveled. But when we went to Ulm, there's a river that goes through there. And we were walking along the river, and I said to Harold, my grandfather probably walked along this street, and it was quite something. No, but what I did, I looked in a telephone book to see his name. Well, I laughed when I looked in this telephone book because his name was Geiger, Geiger. And I looked in the telephone book. There are as many Geigers as there are Smiths over here. I thought if there was, maybe a couple, I could call somebody and, because I knew his name. There were as many Geigers in the phone book that I looked at in Ulm as there were Smiths. I said, if we looked somewhere here. So there was nobody to call up. Not. It was a small city, I would say. because as way back then, when my grandfather was there, he was a child, and his father was a doctor, as I said. So and so I don't think it was, as I say, I don't think it was financial reasons that he wanted a better life here. But so many I know, of my generation came over like that as young teenagers or something. And why, I don't know. And oh, that was an interesting thing. We had a hotel right in town, and in the morning early, all of a sudden I hear these bells. These bells are ringing. And I said, "Oh, what's that? What are those bells?" It was real early in the morning. So we looked out the window, and right through the middle of town came this herd of cows. And they had bells on their necks. That's what the bells were. But people in they would have the cattle in town, and then they'd take them out to the fields during the day. And I guess they were moving this herd of cattle with the bells on their necks. And that's what woke us up in the morning, the bells on their necks. You don't find that in guidebooks. So and so that was interesting, that how we got awakened to bells, and it turned out to be these cows walking through the town right in the middle of the street early in the morning. And so you see, it was not a big city with a lot of cars. We wanted to go to where they have the Oberama, and we wanted to go to Oberammergau, where they have the Passion Play, every year, every 10 years, I should say. This was not a 10th year, though, to see the Passion Play. But we said, well, we go to see where the theater is. And in Oberammergau, they have all these places. They're doing things for tourists too. All these shops where you could buy things. It seems like the people over there are working to put all these things in these stores for the tourists when they come. And there's carvings all over the place. The men and women must spend all their days carving, and in the summertime, they would place all these things in shops, uh, and you could buy anything you wanted there. Carving we bought there. It's a carving of the nativity scene. It's about this big. I love this one. I saw this one in one of these shop windows, and we said, "Well, we'll go through the whole town." Uh, we priced this, and it was expensive. In those days, $200 was very expensive, and we never spent like that. We were always very conservative people, but I just loved this. It was beautiful. And we went and saw all these things. And Harold, when we came back, Harold said, "The thing you liked was that carving in." I said, "Yes." He said, "We're going to buy it," which we did. Now, $200 was a lot of money in those days, but it's beautiful. Well, if you've got to see it, if you've never seen it, you would never hear at Christmas time when I'd have all these things out. But anyway, we did buy that. When we were in Ulm, I bought we have a plate that in German says, "Give us this day our daily bread," and I bought that for my mother. So of course, I have that now too. Oh, we went to this church where Johann Sebastian Bach sang in the choir of this church that we went to, 1700 to 1702. We think we have things old here, but he sang in a choir there. St. Michael's Church in Lunenburg or Hamburg. So that was Hamburg. And there was a lot of city traffic in Hamburg. Oh, there was a wedding at this church, and they were coming out from the church, but the bridal couple. Now they were an older couple who were getting married. Uh, and the bride came out with an arm of red roses. Okay. I wrote that down in my book here. Oh, that was funny. Uh, what you call it? We stayed in this hotel, and it was a gambling city. We found out, and we got the room we were in was up in the tower. So we must have gone. I don't know what we did. Uh, uh, it was the end of the stairs, I said, and the floor was crooked. It wasn't flat. It was a hill, and we said I wrote down in here the bed was downhill. Ah, oh, that was funny. We hadn't been in Germany very long, and the fellow who brought our bags up to the hotel, and Harold wanted, to tip the fellow, and Harold wasn't really too familiar, I guess, with the money, and he must have given them a big tip, which he didn't realize, I guess. And the fellow, he couldn't thank us enough. So Harold, I said, "What did you give him?" He said, "I thought I gave him such and such, but maybe it was more the way he thanked us." So maybe we made somebody's day there anyway. It was funny, and I wrote down here, I thought he was going to kiss us. So Harold must have given him more than he realized he did. But when you have different money every night, it's confusing sometimes. And the only time Harold had been in Germany was during the war, and he was riding in a jeep, and he was in the army. He wasn't having money exchanges and so forth. Oh, he'd go to a bank, and he'd take what money we had, and he'd change it to what they had. Like we'd get marks in Germany. We'd get whatever, and we got to know it that way. Except this one time, he must have over tipped the bellboy. Uh, but you learn as you go along. Oh, that was interesting. Uh, you may have noticed in our dining room we have all those mugs up on the shelf up on the house, and there's one big crock, like it's a brown and tan or something, and they made May wine in it. Um, well, anyway, we got there. We went into this dining room to have breakfast, and I got so excited because there they had that exact crock that we have at home that was my grandmother's, but it was blue. The design and it was blue, but it was the same thing that with that we and I got all excited because here I said, Harold, look, there's our big crock. Well, it's written is what it's got on it is in German language. Yeah. These crocks, what they did in Germany, my mother told me about this. They would take wine and they put some spice, I think it was woodruff, that they put in with this wine. They made what they called May wine. Why, I don't know. Whether it was MAY or MAE, I don't know. But anyway, this is what my mother told me. They made this what they called May wine, and they made it in these crocks because, well, next time you come to my house, you can see there's a place there where you could put the ladle in. You can take the top of it off, but you can see there's like a hole. Well, it's not a hole, but where the ladle would go in, and they would take the wine out of this crock and pour it into glasses or cups or whatever they drank it out of. I don't know. We went to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich. Now that's beer. Um, the real stuff, the real beer. But how they served it, these waitresses, they served it in steins that big with a handle on it, a liter. You got a liter of beer. Now, Harold took a picture of me with a liter. Can you imagine? Liter is more than a quart. I never could figure out, that. But anyway, That's how they served the beer. You couldn't buy just a small glass of beer. You bought a liter of beer. No, it's not for iced. It's not iced. They don't they don't have any iced drinks over there in Europe because I can remember, I mean, if you ordered something and you ordered, Harold and I used to drink scotch. So if we'd go and we'd have to say over ice. And one of the somebody who spoke German, who spoke English rather, said to us, "Why do all you Americans want you drinks with ice in it?" They, they drank beer and all this room temperature. But see, they wouldn't like the beer here; it would be too cold for them. But of course, we had to go to the Hofbrauhaus and with the Oompa bands and all. It was great. So that was a fun thing we did in Germany. Oh, in this castle, it was a huge castle, Marienburg Castle. They found remnants that went back to 1000 BC. We think our country is old when there's something in our country that's 300 years old. Oh, that was interesting. Um, we were driving and we found this walled city. Now, they they to fortify their cities way back then, they built a wall around their city. And this city that we stopped at, they had the wall was still standing there. You had to drive through a gate to get into the city because there was a wall all around it. Um, we thought, oh, that's funny. It was around dinner time, so Harold said, let's have dinner here. See, we didn't have any reservations any place, so we went. We had dinner in this walled city. So I said, well, we had our dinner. I said, this is a hotel too. Why don't we stay here in the stay overnight in the walled city? Which we did then. No reservations any place. Well, great way it was to travel. So we stayed in the walled city. Oh, the houses in the walled city like this, they were actually built where one wall of their house was the wall of the city. I never knew that. The wall all around the town, and the people would build their houses against this wall. So the one wall of their house was the wall to the city. I never knew that. That was very interesting. See, when you just go travel by yourself like that, you find out a lot that you don't if you're on a tour or something. So that's why Harold and I like to travel the way we did when we could. If we could travel on our own, and he knew enough German that he could. He took German in, I guess, college. He took German, so he knew, some. Not that you learn that much in school. Oh, we wanted when we went to buy a dictionary, or I guess it was a dictionary in this bookstore, and Harold is trying to explain what he wants, and finally he gets it. And when when we're ready to leave, she speaks out fluent English. She was teasing us because he was trying so hard to speak the German. See, Harold got us through Germany. I could get us through France. I knew enough French, so that would take us longer. See, when I get off on tangents, those are the interesting things, like the walled city. I never knew about walled cities. Especially, when we learned how they built their houses right against the wall. So, see, I slept very, very comfortably in a walled city with the wall all around me. I was very safe.